In this next example, we are primarily adding in support movement. We're also going to illustrate with the moment distribution method multiple fixed ends as well. So we have two applied loads and the support movement. This item looks an awful lot like an example that we did in slope deflection, the only difference being that this right hand support in that case was free. We had a cantilever segment. Here we don't. That's a fixed end. So delta B settles down, and that's going to create a chord rotation here that's clockwise for the left span AB, and it's going to be counterclockwise or negative for the middle span. And there's no chord rotation effect here in the far right one. The way we handle this in the moment distribution method is really going back to slope deflection, writing out that whole phrase and focusing here on this chord rotation term where we know the amount of chord rotation. And so what we'll ultimately really do is we're going to think of the chord rotation caused by the support movement or any other kind of support movement like effect. Right? This is a direct sway, but let's say we had a rotation at one of the joints that were fixed and that was a known amount. We would likewise treat one of the affected terms here as though it were a fixed end moment because it's a known value. And we've derived elsewhere where that 6ek psi term comes in this case, etc. here, and that's what we call the pseudo fixed end moment for the support. For AB, that amounts to being then the minus 6 times the E. That's 150 gigapascals. Looking ahead to kilonewton meters as the moment, then I've rewritten this in terms of not gigapascals but kilopascals. So 150 times 10 to the 6 kilopascals times our I over L of the member, and I've rewritten that I in terms of not millimeters to the fourth but meters to the fourth. That of course becomes very convenient in the exponents, and then of course times the chord rotation, and that gives us a negative 72 kilonewton meters at either end for AB. Right? It's the same on both ends, not a plus or minus, but the same on both ends, reflecting the S curve that we have here in that motion. Likewise, we do the same thing for the middle segment. We end up with a plus 64. It is a longer span, and because of that, there's a dual effect here in both the psi term as well as in the K term, and it has a different bending rigidity. All that contributes to a slightly smaller but positive fixed end moment equivalent for the middle span. Had we had some sort of fabrication error, I wouldn't say there's a general expression for that, but you'll have to work out, is it a camber that's a fabrication error? Is it a sway term? That's the fabrication error, and you have to be creative in that regard, doing the same kind of thing that we're doing here to figure out what its equivalent fixed end moment effect is. Right? So from the strategy standpoint, that's what we do. Let's see how this all plays out in a numerical fashion.